Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting weekly edition of our interview with Dr. David Schwartz, Director of the Center for Gaming Research at UNLV, as well as a great follow on Twitter at Dr. Dave702. You can also find his articles on Forbes. You can also find his books everywhere books are sold, especially on Amazon. It is such an honor to get to talk to you every week, Dr. Dave. Thank you again for being here.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's always awesome.
All right. Well, yeah. Since we talked last, you've been prolific. You put out a couple new articles. One of them obviously struck a nerve with a lot of fans of Las Vegas or haters of Las Vegas. Just I don't know. Either way, it went up. As of today, November 5th. You're at like close to 80,000 views of this article. So, why don't you give us the high level overview of what this article was about?
Yeah, this is about what happened in September, the Nevada gaming numbers in September, and they weren't that great. There's a lot of weakness on the Strip. The Strip declined, and I think people were curious about that. Why did that happen? And as I talk about it, one of the big reasons is that the Baccarat numbers, which is really a proxy for all high-end play, especially international high-end play, was down. So that definitely factored in.
And why do we think Baccarat is down so much?
Well, I don't really know the why. I just know the impact it's having, which is that they're not really drawing the kind of numbers they were. So the growth is definitely constrained.
Yeah, you cited 41% drop in Baccarat, which is huge, especially when you're talking about that isn't like dropping 1 million to 600,000. This is 100-something million down to 60. I mean, those are real big numbers.
And that's basically over 5 years. In 2013, they made about 116 million, and last month it was only around 69 million. That's the 41% decrease. So that's over 5 years' time, your Baccarat's gone down by 41%. That's a pretty significant structural change there in your earnings.
And it's not like it's Macau is growing their Baccarat hold or their Baccarat revenue at the same pace, right? Because Macau, while Baccarat was going down in Las Vegas, it was going down the high-end play in Macau as well, right?
Yeah, Macau got hit pretty good too. So there's definitely been a lot of, difficulties at both ends.
Yeah, I remember when Macau really took a nosedive. It was pretty abrupt, and it was because, if I remember right, and you probably remember better than me, China enacted some kind of policy where, like, if you're betting big, they could arrest you, or like they would at least like publish the names. Or do you remember what that was? It was some kind of policy that the Chinese government enacted that just spooked a ton of high rollers, and Macau just fell off a cliff.
Yeah, there's basically a big crackdown on corruption and graft by the Chinese Communist Party and the Beijing government there. And what that did is it made it a lot less fashionable to be showing a lot of money around China. And one of the ways you would show around a lot of money would be to gamble in Macau. So a lot of people didn't really have the appetite for it after that started happening.
Now, we talk in the article. You make a good point, and I think it's important for people to understand that the margin on gambling is a lot greater than pretty much every other part of the casino's kind of revenue breakdown, right? So you talk about gaming revenue is down 1%, and maybe revenue as a whole is flat, but not every dollar of revenue is created equal. So maybe you could kind of talk about, give us some color in that. Like why would you say that gaming revenue is so much more valuable than restaurant revenue or hotel revenue?
Yeah, I say it's more valuable because it costs more money to get that dollar you're getting from the restaurant than it does to get a dollar from gaming. There is a lot more overhead that goes on, behind making your dollar, selling a burger, or even selling beer or cocktails than goes behind making that dollar with blackjack or slot machines. So that's why I consider not every dollar earned to be equal.
Yeah, it's true because, like you said, at a blackjack table, there's a dealer who their hourly wage isn't that high. The cost isn't that much for the table. Slot machines, again, you pay power, you pay a slot attendant, but and maybe some licensing fees to the manufacturer. But it's really like pure upside. And I know people talk a lot about, oh, $500 bottles at the nightclub. Like, I mean, sure, the cost of that bottle, maybe 25 or $50, or no, it's probably $10. It's a lot less. I mean, the margin on that item is super high. But if they've got Calvin Harris or some big DJ that they're paying, $100,000 or a couple hundred, whatever it is that night, plus all the entertainer or the servers that are walking around, all the bouncers out front. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that show. So even though people think like, man, you're marking up a bottle 50x, well, there's a lot of cost to draw people in there. A dead nightclub isn't going to sell any bottles. Whereas a blackjack table, you don't need to pay a celebrity dealer to get people to sit down, right?
Yeah, preferably or not. I definitely agree that there is that sunk costs in any of that nightclub revenue. Even though nightclubs make a lot of money, you do a lot of sunk costs. If you remember when they opened Hakkasan, I think between the construction cost and the DJs for the first year, they were $200 million in the hole before they even opened. So you have to make back that kind of nut to start making money with that. Whereas for a blackjack table, pretty much the dealer's not getting paid a great deal. The table itself isn't that expensive. The cards aren't that expensive. You're making money a lot easier.
And so what was interesting is slots increased in the most recent month in September. Now, and that's offsetting some of the drop in Baccarat. And slots is easier to market, I guess you could say. Maybe that's not the right term, but a high-end Baccarat player, it can be really expensive. You got to make deals, discounts on loss. You may have to fly in a plane. Whereas the vast majority, like the mass market slot players, a lot of them will just come in because of a free room. And I wonder how much of that slot hold increasing is because of fewer and fewer people like paying for rooms. Let me unpack that. So like, it seemed like Vegas was offering everybody with a pulse a comp room. Like anybody that's ever put in a player's card and gambled $5, it seemed like they were getting comp rooms on the strip this summer. And I wonder if, because so many people like comp rooms, like they're just more people that may not be great slot players, but they're just, I got a free room. They show up, and that accounts for that 1% year over year slot increase.
Yeah, that could be. I think basically what it shows is that the appetite for retail gambling is a lot bigger than the appetite for that high roller gambling right now. I think there's definitely a big market for it.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, this article came out before the earnings call, and I think all the Q3 earnings was probably better than a lot of people expected. Or what was your feeling on the Q3 earnings?
Yeah, I think definitely they were better overall than people expected, but there's still that weakness in Las Vegas, and you can't really sugarcoat it. You can't paper over it. It's just there. That number is the Baccarat revenue went down the whole quarter. So that's kind of hard to point at that as a sign that it's going to grow in the future.
Now, when stock prices go down, when there's weakness in the market, mergers and acquisitions start making more sense. There's more buyers coming in. And your article after this one was about Tillman Fertitta, aka the $1 billion buyer on CNBC. The guy that he launched Landry's. Either way, he's the owner, CEO of Landry's, also owner of the Golden Nugget casino brands. He made a offer to acquire Caesars. Actually, it was a reverse merger. Why don't you maybe you could walk us through what the offer was that Tillman presented?
Yeah, basically the offer was that Caesars would pretty much acquire Landry's, but the Tillman Fertitta would run the combined companies because Caesars is a lot larger than Golden Nugget is. So basically that's what would have happened.
I thought it was interesting in your article. And by the way, you guys can check out any of Dr. Dave's articles. I usually just find it by Googling Forbes David Schwartz, and then you're the first result, and I click on that. But anyway, on Forbes, you can find all of Dr. Dave's articles. But I thought it was an interesting quote Tillman had. He's like, I acquire companies that need leaders. It seemed like kind of a shot. Obviously, he wasn't speaking directly about Caesars, but it may be a funny coincidence that like a week after he attempted to buy Caesars, they fire their leader right?
Yeah, that was definitely interesting timing for that. And I think it shows just how perceptive he is. And sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire. So I think his motivations in doing this are right on the ball. He sees a leadership gap and he wants to jump right in there.
So what is your feeling, or what are rumor? Is it now that the board rebuffed Tillman, they say, hey, we're not going to do this? Is that the end of it, or do you think there's still the doors open for something to happen with Caesars?
Oh, I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. I don't have any kind of insider angle on that. I would just think that where there's some interest, there will be more interest.
Well, I saw an article today in the New York Post, and that there seemed like a publication that's into wild speculation, but they said that MGM is sniffing around for a possible acquisition of Caesars, not knowing anything about antitrust. I mean, beyond that, like the government doesn't want monopolies, but that seems like something where if MGM tried to buy Caesars, there's no way. I would think there's no way that they would let one company own like 80% of the Las Vegas Strip. But I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think so, but stranger things have happened. So you never know what's going to actually transpire.
Yeah. Anyway, that would be interesting. I think Tillman. I mean, Golden Nugget. Those are well-run properties. I've been to the one in Lake Charles. Been to the one downtown, of course. I mean, they've got a good thing going, and I think it's interesting. Their rewards program. It's something that I haven't seen anywhere else in the gaming industry, where you can earn points at a Golden Nugget casino and then spend it at any Landry's restaurant. And I heard the system is really slick. I've talked to some players that have redeemed it at a steakhouse in New York City. And anyway, that would be. I kind of wish Golden Nugget was able to complete the acquisition, because that'd be really cool to implement or integrate Total Rewards with something like that. I think it'd make Total Rewards even more powerful.
There's definitely a lot of potential upside there. Sure.
All right. Well, anything that we didn't cover with regards to like Strip, business on the Strip, or Tillman Fertitta or Golden Nugget?
I think we got it all. It's a story that's very dynamic. It's a story that's definitely developing. So we'll probably be hearing more about this in the future.
Yeah. We may have to call an emergency podcast, emergency interview if there's a big acquisition that goes down between now and then.
Yeah.
One more question. How much do you know about the guy that is the latest rumored successor to Mark Versora, who's again ousted as CEO of Caesars, the San Filipino, I can't say his last name, the guy that was CEO of Pinnacle, who now after the acquisition he's out of a job. After Pinnacle was purchased by Penn, the rumor is that this gentleman who was CEO is now the favorite to take the CEO role at Caesars. Do you know much about him?
I don't really know anything about that whole situation. No.
All right. Well, I'll just make up stuff about him. But no, I've heard he's a great leader. Pinnacle, their stock price like went up every year, and then he had a very successful exit. So I think a lot of these activist investors and just the hedge funds that own the majority of Caesars are, look at him as somebody that has brought a lot of shareholder value and has proven it in the gaming industry. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Versora. His last day is February, that's the end of his tenure, and I'd expect they'll announce his successor sometime probably before the end of the year. I don't think
Hopefully they will.
Yeah. All right, Dr. Dave. Well, thank you, sir. What are you working on for your next article?
Oh, a little bit of everything right now. So it's definitely going to be a work in progress.
Oh, yeah. It sounds like my parents asked me what I had for homework. Like you wait until the 11 p.m. on Sunday night to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Dave. Well, thank you for your time, and we'll catch up next week.